both know I love a good analogy, and I am prone to being a little bit verbose, little exposition to start the show. Today will be one of those. So, it's a meat analogy, so vegetarians and vegans. I'm sorry, but when you're making, like, I don't know, you're making chicken, you're making a roast, something. You got a big piece of meat that you're about to slow cook it for a long time. You want to take your time with it. You want to curate something great. And before you can get all of your spices and your rub on, and maybe you're going to do a marinade, before this piece of meat even comes close to a heat source, the first thing you got to do to make sure that you're prepared for the next phase of the cook is to trim off the fat. You want to keep some, because as that fat renders down, that's going to provide a lot of flavor into your bite. But typically, there's going to be some around the outside that you don't need. And you want to trim it off because it has no place anymore on the meat. It's served its purpose in life. And now before it's turned into sustenance for you, you got to remove some of the fat. And that's what we're going to talk about today, trimming the fat from our collections.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know how to. That's pretty good. That's one of your best analogies yet.
Thank
I
you.
really enjoyed that one.
Thank you.
That was actually really good. I didn't know where you're going with that for a minute, but would you say some of us now, we don't even buy fatty meat. We buy more of a quality meat.
I'm on that 93.7.
Exactly. You're on the 93.7 meat. So
honestly, sometimes I'm getting the Impossible Burger. I'm getting the Beyond Meat. I ain't even buying the meat anymore. In this analogy, I guess the Impossible Beef is the digital version.
Yeah, like
I think.
So when you talk about trimming the fat from your collection, are you talking specifically about paper? Like paper is the fat? Because like digital, you can't really trim digital once you buy it. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, this is
I
assumed this was a paper conversation.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. So this is going to be one of those conversations that are maybe just be for me and you, but definitely like trimming. Yeah, definitely like trimming the fat from the collection. So I think this is something like I do approximately like maybe once a year. And kind of with January coming up, I'm kind of thinking like maybe I'll just remember to do this like every January 1st, like go through my comics, see what stuff I'm like could really care less that I have or own, and get rid of it. You recently went through this. Like, what facilitated or prompted you to like do this? Why you have for those who have been to Dave's house, which is me, and a couple others, Dave has like a really nice comic book room, like a spare room that's very laid out with all the statues and collectibles and all that, and his comic collections and hardcovers. Like, that thing's not out of control. Like, why did you go about curating your collection a little bit? Like, what prompted that?
The same thing that prompts it every time. I moved. Every time I move,
okay,
the prospect of taking everything, it's a little bit more difficult. And I'm like, there's got to be something I can get rid of. Like, and I think this is really not just comics for me. It's every time I'm having to pack my life into boxes, I sort of take an inventory of not just the physical weight of these things that I have to carry with me, but the mental and emotional weight that comes along with owning possessions. There's, and without getting too philosophical on the podcast, I think that we are in general a fairly materialistic society.
Yeah.
And I've fallen victim to that many times, and will again in the future. And the moves always put me in a state of mind where I'm kind of wanting to slim down my life a little bit and really just hone in on the things that matter the most to me. And this most recent time was the deepest cut that I've ever done. And it was actually post the move, because this most recent move, for the first time in my life, I paid movers to do this for me.
So it shouldn't have hurt you as much.
It did not hurt me in any capacity whatsoever, because they had to move the 33, 34-ish long boxes, an hour north of the middle of DFW to where I live today. But they didn't put them in the room in any particular order.
There we go. So you did have to move something.
When I had to set the room up, and I'm unpacking all of these hardcovers out of boxes, and I'm finding the start of the collection in the long boxes, and then having to find out the snake pattern of the alphabet by publisher and put them all in the right order, and then stack them in reverse order, because for those that, well, none of you would know except Matt, I don't use the standard long box with a lid technique. I actually have drawer boxes for my long boxes. So there's no lid. My long box slides into a sturdy, like, rectangle of cardboard that you can stack 5 high. So my long boxes are stacked in the corner of this room, like in a 4x5 grid. And I can just slide the box out to get to my comics, which sounds good in theory until you're trying to get something on the top row. And I realize that I have no way to support the box once I've slid it out. So the option is to either take it all the way out and put it on the floor, or like hold it up with my chest while I flip through the box. It's not a perfect system, but it is the one that works the best for me. But anyway, while I was setting up the collection again, finally get to the answer to your question. This is a very long answer to a very simple question. I'm sorry.
No.
It just got to the point where, I don't know. I was thinking about things that I could rebuy digitally, because I don't need to have the paper sitting in a box. I'm never going to go back to read some of this stuff in paper. I could just look at it digitally if I really want to. And it was at a period of time where Matt and I had a little bit of a pre-Amazon Comixology. We had a little bit of a thing going on.
An arrangement.
We had, you were able to download DRM free backups of your Comixology purchases at one point, and you know what? It was just easier to store those in a shared drive that we could both access, and I'll leave it at that. What happened to the things in those drives? Who knows? Did I read some things that Matt bought? Maybe. Did he read some things that I bought? Maybe. We just had things stored in a shared space. That's all. There's nothing wrong with that. But, it was just time, man. It was just time to slim the collection down. And I went from 34 boxes down to like 21 or 22. Deep cuts.
So you've very much embraced the whole digital solution, especially with like current comics, I think. How do you I don't know. I have trouble just because I was hearkening back to our original conversation. So we're like, why do we collect these things? It's kind of narcissistic to buy things to show them off for people to come into your house, to like show them off. Like, who are you showing off to? Like, what are we
nobody.
Doing? We're comic
I've
book
also
nerds.
learned
like,
that no one comes over to my house. So
who are we really
nobody.
showing this stuff off to? But like for you, like I know that like Batman is a character, and that's like one book I just have to collect. I can't stop buying it. Even if I read it on DC Infinite, like I just have to buy Batman, and it doesn't help right now that Chip Zdarsky's writing it. So like I'm like all about it right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But like the problem was I really liked the Tynion run. I had thought of like, oh, I was enjoying the Tynion run, but I'm like, do I really need this paper? And then once I heard Tynion was leaving and I was getting to the end of the run, I was like, all right, I'll just finish out the run. There's only a couple issues. That'll be where I split. Bet, whatever. Then Joshua Williamson was on for a couple issues. I got the first issue. It was good. I liked it. I read that.
Good writer.
And then Zdarsky got on. So like I had my time to get out at the end of the Tynion run, but I just kept getting on the hook. I keep getting on the hook. So I guess long story, I'm rambling now, but like you've collected, you've given me some of your older Batman collection, but like how do you get rid of it? Like, don't you have any emotional attachment to it, or like you're like, I got a digital copy, it's good, I can read it, I'll have those stories X Y Z.
Uh, a good question. I don't know what the real answer is. I think
Okay.
part of it is that I am by nature really okay with compartmentalizing things, and I can shut things off pretty quickly and with finality when it comes to relationships with other people. If it's time, if that relationship has run its course, it doesn't have
Yep.
to be a romantic relationship, just any relationship. If
No,
if it's time to say goodbye, like we're saying goodbye. See you later.
you shut way more Joe blows off than romantic relationships. I can tell you that. I know from
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
When some things hit finality, Dave is very quick to be like, all right, this was good.
Yeah.
We're good here.
When it no longer serves a purpose in my life, and maybe that's a
Yeah.
selfish thing to say or think, but when it no longer makes my life better or enriches me, I no longer have a use for it.
It's very utilitarian. Very utilitarian of you. But like, I feel like
Should I be
most of the
insulted by that?
no, I just feel like most of the relationships you have cut off though, like they have been in a negative. It's not even like a homeostatic, like we're both getting something, like it's been someone has wronged you or done something
Yeah.
incredibly offensive. Like, so I get it. Like
Yeah. So do these comics. They've
they're
wronged me.
broken my back.
I got
Broken my
back
back.
pain and taking up space,
Okay.
messing up
So
my
you
floors.
so you can all right, so you can compartmentalize. So you're just like, I've read these stories, they've served their purpose.
You know,
I'm moving on.
now that you mention it, since we've gone down this rabbit hole into my psyche,
No, this
um,
isn't what it's for.
I do feel no, but it's come up so many times before on this podcast that I do feel wronged by Marvel Comics.
Yeah, no.
I've been insulted. I feel like they've sort of abused their fans in a lot of ways,
Yes.
and a vast majority of what I got rid of was Marvel. So it still tracks with my general, like, if you've wronged me, I no longer have a use for you, and I feel like Marvel has wronged me, and I'm just like, Daredevil, see you later. Iron Man, goodbye.
Really, like old. Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Not
And
gonna
this is,
reread it. What do I need it for?
I
I know
wish
you're
I
a
wish
Daredevil guy, but
no, not even it doesn't really matter. I just wish I had that where I could maybe I'll get there. Maybe I'll get there to a point where
I don't know,
I
man. I've
could
always
just be
been like
like,
this. Even when I was a kid, I would
yeah,
go through phases where I would just go and purge the collection here and there. My grandma would have a garage sale, and I would go through my comics and find a bunch that I didn't want anymore, and just put them in a garage sale.
because it's like it's not for me. It's not like a monetary thing. Like I know I'm not getting money. I'm not going to sell these things. It's just
Yeah.
like I like having it, and maybe once a year I go down in the basement and I look at this stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. To your point, do I ever read this? Do I ever pull the single issues out and start reading them and flipping through them? No, they're just in a box and I'm flipping through it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool.
I did that with a
But
couple
like,
of things. Magnus Robot Fighter from Valiant. I went and reread that until it became unreadable. What else did I do that with? Doom Patrol. Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol from Vertigo, DC Vertigo. I read that. I went back and read all those at one point. Not all of them, but I read a lot of them. Supreme from the 90s Image, especially when Alan Moore got on the book. I've gone back and read those before. Maybe some other stuff, some Ninja Turtle stuff, some Judge Dredd stuff. But generally speaking, I don't go back to the Marvel stuff and reread it. And if I really want to, I can buy it on sale digitally or drop $6 or $10 for a month of Marvel Unlimited and hope that it's on there.
exactly.
Unless it's Ghost Rider, and then no.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to keep and the Punisher's not on there either. At least
So
last time I was on Unlimited, it wasn't.
I think that you hit on something earlier too that I wanted to talk about as well too, in regards to like the whole digital thing. And I really wish that there was more DRM free comics
Yeah,
because like
me too.
I know it's not a physical thing and I don't own it, but you own it at least. You can save it on a flash drive. You can do whatever. You could put it on a shared point where a friend could read it, or you know, like whatever. You have more ownership over the material. It's just like, okay, if I buy something on Comixology, like I own it. And in fairness to Comixology, books, I think I talked about it before, but there was a run of Mega Man comics that Archie did where that you can't buy those books anymore, but they are in my collection. They have the little thumb art with the Mega Man art, and they're there. Like they didn't disappear, but I technically still don't own it. It's a license. I'm purchasing a license technically, I guess. You know, and when
Yep.
Comixology doesn't update and screws everything up, like I have these comics on this janky reader or whatever now. But I really wish there was some more DRM free ownership. And I think that really does kind of bother me. Whether or not I'm actually going to go back to this material and reread it, it still just bothers me that like you don't really own it.
Yeah, it bothers me too.
I think the solution to that for me would be really taking advantage of sales when things are really cheap and like very like at a very discounted rate.
Yep.
Especially like one of the things that irritates me is just like the price, especially like Marvel and DC books. They're not really discounted. They're well, Marvel is after like 6 months they drop them to like 199, so they're like most of the time half of cover price. But kind of like for Marvel and DC, you might as well get Marvel Unlimited or DC Infinite if you're going to do that. Most of the independents like Image, they're normally half off like a month later. So if you wait, you know, a month of $4.99 book will be $1.99, which is like a good deal. If you can wait, most people can wait. You do that. Or Boom, like we both like Power Rangers, we both read that. After a month, those books are normally $1 cheaper. So like
But
I think, yeah.
but the proposition of buying it twice, basically, like getting it in paper and then going,
Gotcha.
oh, I
Yeah,
could
yeah.
get rid of it from my collection of paper
Yeah.
comics and go buy it digitally. For a lot of people, that's not like you might not be price sensitive and I might not be price sensitive,
Yes.
but a lot of people are and don't want to buy something twice. I don't know if
I'm
that's
not
really a solution.
no, I'm saying like just moving towards digital completely, not getting it in paper. Like,
Got it. So
all
you're
right, I'm
talking about
done.
trimming the collection by not adding to it.
Correct. Like, don't like, all right, after this arc of Power Rangers, I'm gonna get it, and then I'm gonna move to digital or whatever. And like you're just doing not the double buy. I'm not
Got
talking
it.
about that.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
I don't know. Like where I'm at with this is like me in my specific case too as well. I like supporting that LCS. I like, and I know that that's a difference between us. And me buying paper is one way to support that LCS. Um, Marvel specifically, I feel better about because I get a digital code. So for Daredevil, it's a $4 issue, but I'm paying $2.79 for the digital code. So I'm getting a really good deal on those Marvel titles that I don't have to wait. Now, if Marvel Unlimited goes a month, catches up to DC and is 1 month behind, we're having a real conversation then because I can wait a month. A month is not that
I don't
strenuous
I don't
for
like the
me.
codes thing. I think you're talking about $1.20. You got to do all this extra labor of like peeling off the code and entering them in one at a time, and they're long codes, man.
You can
Got
actually
to
enter
hand type
multiple
it
of it.
in.
You can enter multiple of them in though at one time. I did learn
Still
that.
so
But
much
yes, you start.
in a day and age where I can do when I bought my Xbox Series X, all I had to do was scan the QR code on my TV screen, and then I imported all of my settings from my Xbox One to my Series X automatically by literally pressing one button on my phone. You got to make it at least that easy for me now, or I'm not interested.
A man of technology, Dave Luke.
Yes. Make my life easier. I got too much stuff going on. It needs to be as easy and
But
technologically assisted as possible. Which is
so you,
which I think is part of the problem with
yes,
trimming down the collection, because it is not easy to find a home for all of those things that you have now removed from your collection. How do I know this? Because the 12 long boxes that I removed from my collection are still in my house. They're just on the first floor in a closet, waiting to be listed for sale on a Texas buy sell trade Facebook group that I am in related to comics.
Recycle them. If they're truly worthless, recycle them.
I only recycle things that deserve it, like X-Men #1 from 2010 or whatever that was, 2011. But realistically, it is not easy to move contemporary comics because they don't have value. So a comic shop doesn't want to buy them. You can't just go to a con and sell them. You have to buy a table to post up at a con and sell things. And even then, you're not guaranteed to sell everything that you bring.
Right.
You can post things for sale on eBay or on there are marketplace sites. Lone Star Comics allows you to do things via consignment, but again, they're going to be picky. They're going to sell stuff that's worth something. So it's dangerous to even buy stuff in paper that you don't want to keep forever because you're going to be stuck with it. Even donating it to a library is not a given.
Yeah. That whole proposition of you talking about peeling off the coats is a pain in the butt. Me trying to ship something and send it to someone, like that is just like not for me. That's like that's not worth the work. Yeah.
I've done that before, and it's not worth it. Like, really not. And you have to know, if you don't know what you're doing when it comes to how much to charge for shipping, you're gonna lose money on some of the stuff.
Yeah,
like it's so hit or miss.
And I never had the issue. Like I didn't have many of them, but I had like 6 of the Walking Dead hardcovers, and I sold them, and I got like a good price for them. Luckily, the person didn't complain, but I'm sure there's been cases of someone like, oh, these corners are dinged, I don't want these, and like then you got a refund. Like that whole proposition.
Yep.
I have no desire. Like I would much rather like see someone in person. $30, here you go, and like they're done, they're yours. You see them, you inspect them. I don't have to send them to Bakersfield, California. Like no, I'm not. Yep. It's just not worth it to me.
I agree. But I think it's still a useful exercise, and it's not just the long boxes that I trim from. I also trim from the trade paperbacks and hardcovers shelf, which is a 5-foot tall, 5-shelf, 6-foot tall, 5-shelf thing that is almost completely full at all times. Thankfully, I live in a place where a company called Half Price Books exists, and they will take trade paperbacks and graphic novels and sell them or buy them from you. You can sell them to that store. So every, 9 to 12 months, I'll go through and pull out, 10, 12 things that I don't need anymore from the shelf and take them to Half Price Books. If you don't live by Half Price Books, I don't know what to tell you, but maybe you can find a pawn shop. I don't know. Not going to get anything for it. Even Half Price doesn't give you much for it.
But you get something. I mean, you get
something.
Something at least.
You get something.
So digital is the way of the future. This is not the last conversation we're going to have about this. I need to stop jumping in and just like, okay, I'm excited for this Superman #1 reboot. I need to not buy the issue. I just need to buy it digitally or wait for DC Infinite and go from there. But it's always like, oh, I want to try the #1 issue and see how this goes. And then how my brain is, it's like, oh, if you get this, I'm not about getting the complete amazing Spider-Man run from 1962. It's like, I want to get the run of, the comics from the current, creative team if I get on board, or I have to finish the arc or whatever. Like, Dave's just like, nope, not enjoying it. I'm out, done, on to the next thing. And I just wish I had that, Gene, but I just don't.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
You're probably a much nicer person too than me, so trade off, man.
Inside the mind of Dave, like that's what
something like that.
Was it being like John Malkovich, being Dave? Like we didn't. That's we.
Yeah, I don't think we want to do that. All right, you ready to move on?
I'm good.
It's time for the news from Matt. because Dave doesn't really pay attention to this.
All right, so news. Your favorite man in charge, David Zaslav. I don't know how I missed this, but I just want to read this brief statement. Like this was from like November 15th, and I believe
Okay.
this is the whole article.
What's today? Today's the 28th, so
yeah,
this was almost 2 weeks ago.
Hey, it's new news to me though. I just read it today. So this is like, I think this was his whole article where he was talking about focusing more on the established characters and all that stuff. But I just kind of got a chuckle out of this. Like, this sounds really bad to me. I don't know. So he's talking about Warner Brothers, DC, all that stuff. So we have an awful lot of work to do. Or no, we have an awful lot to do and an awful lot to undo. Which is apparently a quote from Yellowstone that he used that show, which is always a good start.
Okay.
It was taking over the company. It was much more challenging than we thought. You open up a closet and then things fell out. We are fixing them. Some assets are better than we thought at the core. The talent is better than we thought. But there was a lot of unexpectedly worse things than we thought. For me, I don't want to buy a company that's well run. It's hard to make it better. So every day we open up a closet and something comes out.
All right.
I don't know why that quote is so funny to me. But it is, I mean, it is.
No, it is really funny.
Like, really for funny. The fact that, like, the man in charge of the company is, like, saying, like, every time I open up a door, I take a step forward, I take 3 back. Like, I don't know why that's so funny to me. But I think that's why we talked about, like, an emphasis, our last episode, an emphasis on more of the core characters, even though in one of his previous statements, he's talking about new characters and new everything, but most of the titles from that reboot or relaunch or whatever this Dawn of DC are, they're all like traditional characters.
Oswald Cobblepot, FBI.
I listened to that episode back then. That was so good, dude. You were going nuts. But
so I have go ahead, sorry.
No. Another thing, like, he also talked about, like, for DC, when they do because I'm like, why don't you just put things to streaming? It's like, well, he said, like, when we do a theatrical release, we make 5 times as much money than we do if we do it straight to streaming. So, I mean, that makes sense why they have to put things out in the theater than to just go directly to streaming. So I understand that.
So, sorry, finish. I have a related news topic for this.
No, I was just going to say, and that makes sense. Like, I know, obviously, when it was really, really peak pandemic, a lot of people weren't willing to come out. But now that a lot of people have gotten COVID or starting to feel more comfortable, it makes sense to put things in theaters and not just launch them directly to streaming. But that was it. I just thought that quote was hilarious, and I don't know how I missed that, but yeah.
So my news related to Warner Brothers is actually news from today.
Okay. Hold on to it for 2 weeks from now. Hold on.
No. Today, Legendary Pictures announced that they are no longer going to partner with Warner Brothers for their theatrical releases and have signed a deal with Sony for distribution. Citing Warner Brothers' decisions to release Legendary films day one streaming against Legendary's wishes. Movies like Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yep. But isn't that
Legendary owns those. Legendary owns those.
Okay. So those movies will not be on HBO Max probably after their agreements are probably up?
They haven't said, but I'm assuming that they'll go to whatever streaming service Sony has a deal with.
Oh, wow.
Depends on how they work the old licenses.
Okay.
They might still stay with Warner Brothers because they did the release. I don't know.
Interesting. That's a big company, though.
Important because I think that Sony is, at least from a movie production standpoint and a dedication to the theater standpoint, I think Sony is in a better position to support Legendary and I care because Legendary has all of the MonsterVerse stuff, Godzilla and King Kong and all that stuff. Legendary also has Pacific Rim.
Yeah. Don't they do the Nolan films too? I feel like they did all of Chris. I know Christopher Nolan doesn't do a lot of movies, but I feel like Legendary maybe not.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, interesting.
Couldn't tell you.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, that's no, that's obviously very relevant.
I just hope it means we get another Pacific Rim movie that doesn't suck.
I hope so. I hope so too. News topic number 2. AWA Studios, which is a company that I like. I think most of their books are quality. Like they're good. It stands for AWA stands for like artists, writers, and artisans or something like that.
Okay.
A lot of old Marvel talent from like the Axel Alonso era. He's actually like the EIC over there. So if you remember Axel Alonso, he's running that ship, but they do a lot. Their stories are pretty interesting. Mike Deodato does a lot of art, and I've always liked his art.
Yep.
But they started a creative council to spearhead like their, I don't want to say continuity, but like their creative vision, including Reginald Hudlin, who did like the movie Boomerang, Django Unchained. He also did a Black Panther run in the comic world. Greg Hurwitz, Leda Core, I can't pronounce her name. I'm going to butcher her name, so I'm not going to say it. Joseph Kosinski, who for me, I remember seeing that name. He was on one of the producers of Top Gun Maverick, Al Madrigal, and J. Michael Straczynski. JMS is big over in there. He's done that. What's that series? The series called The Resistance. He was like one of the flag bearers over there for AWA.
I'm not a huge fan of JMS.
I like the Resistance stuff, and I wasn't the biggest fan of like his Marvel work, but
yeah, he strikes me as a bit of an ego guy.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
Yeah,
I could definitely see that. But they're helping doing the creative driven work. They said redefining their storytelling and helping the artists and writers like unleash their potential. That's obviously some PR speak, but I think it's good to have a creative council that is kind of like running your company. I think some of the big two could take note of that to maybe have some tighter continuity, maybe would be nice, or a shared cohesive vision.
Nah,
which will never happen.
Nah.
Dave knows all too well. Quick, apparently on that infographic when we were talking about Dawn of DCU, it's not official, so I'm not going to make it a big deal, but it was on Newsarama. They had an article that like the next event is called Night Terrors, which is going to be primarily Batman focused. So I'm just throwing it out there, something to keep an eye on. Bat focused event. So on this graphic, how we were talking about last week,
Lazarus Planet's not bat focused.
Yep. Yeah, so it's true. Good point. It had like different segments like the MCU timeline. So it was like Lazarus Planet, but it had the Superman logo kicking it off, and then there's like the Aquaman logo, and then under the Night Terrors it was Batman. So I'm wondering, are they going to reboot their titles at that point, or is it something else, or is it just Batman focused? But we'll report on that when it gets to that time. Most important thing, the DC Comics line in December is being taken over by Spawn. Dave, how do you feel about that with those Spawn variant covers? I feel like there's 150 of them. Are you getting any of them?
Zero variant covers.
0 variant covers for Dave.
I quit reading Spawn because Spawn doesn't feel like Spawn anymore. 4 monthly books and it's like superhero-y. Nope. Sorry, nope. Mm-mm. No.
And with that, that's the news.
All right, let's talk about what we're reading, what we're playing. I'll go first because it's not any different than last week. With last week being Thanksgiving and a very busy retail weekend, and I work for a large retail chain in their e-commerce team. So I spent a lot of time working on Thanksgiving, and over the weekend, so I didn't get to do a whole lot.
Oh, good, homie.
So I put a little bit more time into Revival. I'm almost done with Volume 4 now, so I'm almost halfway through the series. And yeah, I played some F1 Manager.
Did you eat good on Thanksgiving though?
I did.
Good.
I got barbecue catered.
Nice. Oh,
dinner.
You said you were gonna do that. Yep.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. From Meet You Anywhere here in DFW. I just did smoked turkey. I didn't do any brisket or anything this time. Although I did get some brisket tamales that they make that were pretty fantastic. And the person that I'm seeing, she came over that night and she baked me a pie, so I had that too.
Good for you.
Your holiday was good?
My holiday was
I know you were out of state with the wife's family.
I was out of state with the in-laws. So when that happens, that means I get to read a lot of comic books.
Okay, all right. Well, then this is all you.
Child. Okay. Number 4 book. A fitting tribute. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 102. Not going to go crazy into it because Dave hasn't read it yet.
Yeah, please don't get too much detail into it because I haven't read 101 yet either.
Nope. The art...
That's not true. I did read 101. I did read 101.
I know that you're kind of hurting because there's no Omega Rangers in this.
Yep.
I do like that the art has seemed to be more consistent with one book. I know, obviously, Mighty Morphin had its own art team. Power Rangers had its own art team. I know that was different. But there was still some fill-in artists between Mighty Morphin, even issues of Mighty Morphin. And with this, it's been consistent, which I really, really like that.
Only been 2 issues.
It's been to we're stringing games together, though. 2 games, 2 wins.
They were doing that before, too, where you'd get a whole arc before a fill-in. How's this any different?
No, there were some times where there would be a fill-in in mid-arc. They pulled a couple Marvels. They pulled some Marvels every once in a while, but
I just don't pay that close of attention to it.
I look for the artist, but
clearly. I'm sorry I questioned it. Go on.
Nope.
I've been humbled. Continue.
Good art. I think you'll be interested what happens to Rita Repulsa.
Spoiler.
I'm gonna leave it
Spoiler.
at that.
You already spoiled it without spoiling it.
These are just Power Rangers names. And I just thought it was interesting. The Green Ranger had a pretty heroic moment in this issue, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought that was fitting with the whole Jason David Frank thing. And I'm still thinking about that, man. It still got me shaken up a little bit. But I thought that was cool when I was reading that. I was like, all right, that's pretty sweet. But moving on from Power Rangers, my next book I read, G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, number 300. This was the end of G.I. Joe at IDW. I put this one off because I didn't want it to be over, man. I did not want it to be over. There's some real hokey and zany stuff going on in this book. So I've been reading. I jumped on board like issue 280-ish and started reading. So I've read 20 issues of this since then. I read a lot of it in the beginning. I don't really remember, but I'm whatever. But there's some zaniness going on. Cobra, there's a Cobra casino that has been the new thing that's going on. And of course it's a Cobra staging hidden base, but there's a casino there. So people are gambling and it's like a resort and everything. I don't know if you knew, but the original Snake Eyes died in this issue. In the past issue, the previous issue at the end, he was actually resurrected. So in this issue, the OG Snake Eyes is back.
Okay.
There's actually 2 other Snake Eyes, I think, running around, whatever. I don't know. Just a lot of zaniness going on.
I remember they had a female Snake Eyes. They had a female,
so she's around. But apparently there's another guy who's filling the role of Snake Eye. I don't know.
Okay.
But so we potentially have 3 Snake Eyes running around.
All right.
This is G.I. Joe's all-in. It's called the all-in arc. It's their all-in assault on this Cobra Island. I'm reading this thing. I'm really enjoying it. There's some awesome splash pages, good stuff going on. And then it gets to the end of the book. And it just abruptly ends. Really abruptly ends. And I'm like, what is this? What's going on? And I do what I don't often do. I read the letters page of what's going on. So I read, that page, and I think we're going to get some more GI Joe. It's not going to be at IDW, but the editor even alludes to is like, obviously, if you read this, there's more story to be told, and I think we need to talk to Larry about that, about where he's going to go next. So they kind of leave it there. It's like super abrupt, and I'm hoping it gets picked up by maybe Robert Kirkman, maybe someone, I don't know.
Well, didn't he already buy
Boom
the license?
Studios. I don't know if he bought. I don't know if that's official. I think that's
Oh,
been a rumor that he bought GI Joe and Transformers. You can fact check me
man,
on that. I'd love it.
you
But
could have looked this up for the news, man.
I could have. I feel like I would have seen that though at some point. But
This isn't very good investigative reporting.
no, no, I never said I was a investigative reporter. But I guess while Dave looks that up, you can cut me off. Whatever. But really enjoyed GI Joe once I got on board, and I can't wait to see where it's going next. Hopefully, I'll pick it up digitally. But I will continue to read GI Joe just because I love those characters, and I like Larry Hama and those stories that he's telling. Okay, so my second to last book. Have you heard, Dave, or read the book Philadelphia?
I have not. Although I see the cover every month when I look through previews, and it looks cool. I think it's probably something that I'd like. I just didn't have any room.
Time is of the essence. We understand. So, Philadelphia. This is no spoilers. This is what's on the trade, and I'll even not go into what's on the back of the trade. James Sangster Jr. is a lower level detective, and he goes to Philadelphia to bury his father, who has been recently killed. And in this, you discover that there's something strange going on in Philadelphia at the current moment. Stuff that's very eldritch, and there's a lot of murders that are going on. And it's involving vampires in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And these vampires have been around for a very, very, very long time. So that the first arcs are you trying to discover, where these vampires are coming from. And there is some interesting characters that go on. I really like this book because there's a lot of African Americans in it, so I think that's cool. There's just like a lot of black characters in the book, and I think that's just a different slant that we don't always get. But these vampires that go far, far back in history, you find out it's a very systemic issue. Sometimes relating to people like this. And I just think it's really cool. And I'll leave it at that because I don't want to spoil it. That's more of a spoiler than you need to know, but it's a cool vampire book.
I do like vampire books.
And I don't know why I do. I'm like all about vampires, American Vampire, Philadelphia. Like
Dude, did you ever read The Strain or watch the show The Strain?
No, I didn't read that.
You would love it, dude. You would love it.
Probably
so
would.
Good.
Now, like I was looking at it's vampire stuff. I probably would love it. Was there a movie? Was there a movie?
No, it was just a show on FX, and there's a comic from Dark Horse.
Okay. Yeah, I might legitimately have to check that out because
the show is based on the comic.
Vampires.
Comic came first.
So I could. All right, well, I'll just check out the comic.
And the concept is a Guillermo del Toro concept, so you know it's cool.
Okay. All right.
It's one of my favorite takes on the vampire trope.
All right, I might have to check that out.
The setting for it is a carrier of the vampiric gene is smuggled into Manhattan.
Okay.
And then Manhattan gets quarantined from the rest of the world because of what happens
Sounds like vampires and the Division. That's everything I want.
A little bit, Dude, it's really, really good. Really,
Awesome.
It's one of my favorite shows of the last 20 years.
Interesting.
Honestly, I'd say the show might be even better than the comic, but phenomenal.
All right. I'm gonna have to check that out. And my last book, Image Comics, Junkyard Joe. Why are you shaking your head? What you know about Junkyard Joe?
I just don't like the idea of it.
What don't you like about Junkyard
Because
Joe?
Geiger was supposed to be an ongoing, and then all of a sudden it turned into a mini with this random one shot after the fact called Junkyard Joe. I don't know. I was buckled. I was ready. I was buckled in and ready for a nice long ongoing to go maybe 40, 50 issues, and all of a sudden they just pulled the rug out from under me.
So Junkyard Joe, Junkyard Joe is Gary Frank and Jeff Johns' creation, spinning out of the Geiger universe. Junkyard Joe is just like this random comic on the back of in the Geiger book, and you're like, what is this Junkyard Joe? So Junkyard Joe is set in Vietnam. There is a cartoonist, Muddy Davis, and he's the guy who was drawing the cartoon strips in the Geiger book. Muddy Davis was in Vietnam. He was serving with the troops. One day, this guy shows up to the platoon. The platoon kind of is like an asshole to this guy. They're not very friendly to him. But Muddy is the only guy, happens to be a black dude. So I was like, all right, cool. I like that too. So Muddy was the only guy who was nice to this dude, this just odd character. Long story short, they get into combat. This guy sacrifices himself to save Muddy. Bomb goes off. Guy stands up, and it's a robot. It's this Junkyard Joe guy. And then the platoon, like, through Muddy's actions, the rest of the platoon start to change, and they accept Junkyard Joe. I'm going to leave it at that. The first issue kind of is in Vietnam, but it's moving towards the current day. This is not a one shot either. It might be a mini series, 6 shots, whatever. I don't know that, but I have issue 2 as well too. Issue 2 is more in the present day. I have not read it yet. But it was really good, and I don't know why I haven't read it until recently. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Geiger too. I need to reread Geiger.
I liked Geiger a lot.
Yeah, like I that pairing of Gary Frank and Jeff Johns is something I really enjoy. I really need to not buy it in paper because the art is beautiful. Like Gary Frank's art is really good. I really enjoyed it on Geiger. So I'm going to pick this one up digitally. But Junkyard Joe is an interesting read. It was a very Muddy's really cool. I like
it's kind of a racist nickname, is it not?
I don't know,
the black dude Buddy?
Buddy, maybe.
That feels a little racist because of the time period with which the book is set. Feels like it's racist.
There's some not so, there's not so great portrayals of some of the Viet Cong, which we've seen. Not that it was like outwardly like offensive or whatever, but like I know I come across as the USA guy, Matt, and Top Gun and all that stuff. You are
wearing a NASCAR hat right now, so yeah.
But like the end of the book has a very like anti-war ending, so like I'm curious to see where it goes to issue 2. So like I read it and like shit, they got me. Like, so I'm gonna pick it up digitally though. I got issue 2 I bought in paper, and I'm gonna wait on the rest. The last thing, Dave, I can't believe I'm saying this.
Uh-oh.
I'm partially awake. Did you see the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special?
I have not watched it yet. I'm aware of its existence, but this weekend was very tiring for me, so I did not enjoy much this weekend. But I will watch it.
I was entertained. That's all I'm going to say. And I didn't think I was going to be.
Well, it wasn't a James Gunn thing, was it?
It was. It
Oh,
was a
really?
James. It was a James.
Interesting.
It was a.
Interesting. Okay.
It was a mild James Gunn joint. He toned himself back though. Like it was not
What's the runtime on this thing?
short. It's only 45 minutes.
Okay.
Like it's not long at all. Like it was quick.
Did
I
you
think
watch
that's probably
Werewolf
why I
by
liked it.
Night?
I didn't. I need to watch that. Like
That
I've
was
heard good
really
things.
good.
Okay,
I
I'll
really
watch
like
that.
that.
Is that like that? Is it like 45 minutes an hour or something like
I
that?
think it's an hour.
Okay. No, I'll
It's an
check that
hour.
out.
It's like less than, it was like 50, 55 minutes, something like that.
And that's probably why I like this, because it wasn't 2 hours of James Gunn. It was like 45 minutes. So I was like, but
The big introduction in Werewolf by Night.
okay.
We get Elsa Bloodstone in the MCU.
Ooh. All right. Well, I'm gonna watch that too.
Big
40. I
Elsa
can do 40.
Bloodstone fan.
I can do 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But
So I got
go ahead.
I got the follow up on our Where's G.I. Joe going?
Yep.
So as of August, Hasbro has not said where it's going. They have said it's going somewhere. They said we have begun talks as to where G.I. Joe and Transformers will end up, but we're not at a place yet where we can publicly say where.
You're saying as of August, like this past August, that was the
August of 2022 was the last news that I could find,
okay.
and that was from Hasbro themselves saying we're in talks, but we haven't announced it yet because nothing's final.
Okay, sounds good.
I also found a really hilarious take on the whole thing where some very angry nerd is writing an article about how IDW lost the license because they forced woke culture into G.I. Joe and Transformers, and that take is laughable at best. I skimmed the article while you were talking about Philadelphia, and I don't want to give any run to that type of hate-filled journalism, but that exists, and it's stupid. But I'll leave it at that.
I mean, I feel like that's just the narrative for everything that a lot of people.
It's low-hanging fruit, man. Like, just because you're a straight white man doesn't mean that it's a problem when a character is a different race or sexuality. I thought we were past this with all of the castings that have occurred in the MCU. You know, when we sometimes gender or race swap a character for the sake of the right actor getting the role and not matching a drawing from 1965, maybe we were starting to move in the right direction, but apparently not. And there's still some sentiment out there that that this stuff is somehow bad. I know we've talked about it before. I'm not going to get into it now because there's definitely a right and a wrong way to do it. I would argue that what IDW did was the right way because they were introducing these characters for the first time as these things. They weren't changing them midstream for the sake of relatability or inclusivity. They were doing it authentically as new characters were introduced into the lore that they were creating with these properties. I don't think it's fair to say that's the reason why they lost the license. The only reason they would lose the license in the capitalist hellscape that is America is because sales were lagging. That's the only reason why things change, is there's not enough money being made. It's always a business decision at the end of the day. You can paint it with whatever brush you want, but dollars and cents rule the world. It's just the way it is. End rant.
I kind of want to start a rant, but I'm not going to. So we're good.
Sorry.
I will just say my only caveat to that is I'm for diversity and inclusion and all that, but storytelling ultimately needs to be your primary focus.
Yeah.
And that needs to be included. When you do that ahead of telling a good story, to me, it is pandering.
I agree. That's an inauthentic way to do it.
Correct.
I agree.
And especially with this IDW point, if these are like completely new characters, if you're not going to do it with new characters, then like, what do you do? Like, we're not changing Optimus Prime. All you people, we're not changing Megatron. You still have those. We're making new characters. So like, what are you talking about then at that point?
Well, one of the examples cited was a character from G.I. Joe that had not been in Real American Hero yet, that was introduced as a female when in the cartoon it was a male. Like, who cares, man? Like, Hasbro did not see that and go, "Are you kidding me? Take the license away!" Like, come on. Like, that is an insane take. It's an absolutely insane take.
Yeah.
Like, whether you like it or not is irrelevant, because the only thing Hasbro cares about is how much money they're making. Like, let's not get it twisted. They only, if anything, Hasbro would be encouraging those types of things for the sake of making more money, to be more inclusive and more diverse and more appealing to a broader audience. The whole take is backwards. Just, it is. Hasbro doesn't care about what you think. Hasbro cares about how much money is in the bank.
As is everything.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It is what it is, man. That's why you got to speak with your wallet. If you don't like something, don't buy it. Trim the fat from your collection. If you don't like the issues, don't keep buying them, etc., etc. It's not a shot at you. That's a general piece of advice.
No. I don't buy things to complain about. Like, if I don't like something, instead of complaining, I just, like you said, I will vote with my wallet, and I'll be like, it's not exactly what I care for.
It's not for me.
That's the way to do it.
Exactly.
So, I hope it works for someone else, not me. But all right. That's it, dude.
Okay. Our Twitter handles are in the description of this video and or audio episode. However, I realized when editing the episode that released today, I never updated my Twitter in the description of these episodes, even though I changed my Twitter name. So if you were looking for me on Twitter and could not find me, that's probably why. It's going to be correct going forward. I fixed it for the episode that released on November 28th, and it will be correct going forward as well. So you can find Matt and I on Twitter and talk to us there. And until next week, I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
Bye-bye.
Peace.